but it also means that they're starting their earnings a little later, and they're spending their 20-somethings a little bit more in travel and experiencing the world and on lifestyle pursuits. This is not universal for every person in the generation, but largely it's what we find consistently in our research. I was just sitting around the table at my office, and I've got a lot of young Gen Ys in my team, and I was saying, I just got back from Rome. I'd never been to Rome before. Here I am, hit 50, never been to Rome. And the 20-somethings say, I've been 2 times. I've been 3 times. And it was just a little anecdote to highlight that actually, they travel more. They're happy to spend money on intangibles. They're happy to experience a little bit more and invest in those experiences, which was quite different to the Gen X and certainly different to the generation that went before. And so, there's a benefit that comes from that. If you spend your money on experiences and lifestyles, you'll travel more, you'll gain more of those life skills and that education. But probably getting into property and the finances is going to be a little bit more of a struggle. And the baby boomers are reaping the rewards of the sacrifice that they had early on. So yeah, I think that our financial state does play out long term based on our attitude to money and our approach to spending.
And Mark, there's a really important point in there that also is they're going to live potentially 10 or 20 years longer than those older generations. So, I mean, that is always the challenge for governments, right, in terms of getting the balance right. I'm a massive believer in open free markets and growing the economic pie. And then, obviously, when you grow the pie, there's more tax revenue to support the more vulnerable in the community. But you've still got to show up and give it a go and have effort as part of that. I mean, we're very fortunate to be living in such a rich country where that opportunity provides itself. But to the point you're making, there has been a trade-off in some respects, and that is land value and obviously building a home where you potentially want to live, where all the action is, as opposed to having to live out wide has been, more challenging for some. And that expectation of, having the white picket fence and having a bit of, land as part of the lifestyle that, that they grow up with is a bit more challenge for them. So I understand that there'll always be that challenge and battle between those types of things. I reckon that's a good segue into, what are those significant differences that we're seeing around financial aspiration. So I'll just read through this particular list, and then we'll start to sort of build some dialogues around that. But builders, 51% said taking regular holidays. 50% said having trusted group of friends and family around them as they're aging and need that additional support. 43% says having a happier marriage. The boomers, 57% being financially independent. This is going to be a theme running right through going forward. 50% says taking regular holidays. 46% said having trusted groups of friends and family around them. Gen X, which is again, our generation, being financially independent, top ranked, having a good work-life balance, number 2, as we start to get a bit of that freedom and time of our kids getting a little bit older. And then 50% said taking regular holidays. Gen Y, having a good work-life balance. So this is that difference in terms of there's that Rome trip showing up in terms of I'm not going to wait till I'm 50, I'm going now. So 60% in that sense. Then you got the 55 being financially independent. So that's still ranking pretty high in the top 3 still. And then 49% taking regular holidays. And then Gen Z, 63% owning a home. Naturally, that's on the life stage that they're on. So it's on their radar. 62% said being financially independent, and 61% said having a good work-life balance. So alphas aren't really in the money management space just yet, so we won't necessarily talk to them. A couple of quick, one quick point for me that I want you to probably expand on. Even with the Gen Zs, 62% said being financially independent was still higher than any other category in any other generational group. Yet it was still number 2 behind owning a home. But money is which is what you alluded to earlier. Money is becoming more and more important, or money management or money awareness is becoming more and more important. And I think that is a great thing, in terms of because ultimately it becomes part of the decisions and behaviors that I make. So what else did you take out of, those particular findings?
Yeah, that's a great point, Ben, that the older generation were part of growing up in a social contract where you work hard and you pay your tax, but when you retire, there's a government pension there for you. Or if you hit some hard luck and something goes wrong, there's a safety net, and that's how the economy worked. But the younger generations have seen that actually that safety net is not guaranteed, at least not if you want a particular lifestyle, if you want
Yeah,
options. And if you want to be in charge of your own destiny, you probably need your own financial independence. And with the aging profile of the population, they've pretty much recognized that the pension is not going to be universal. And even if it is, it's not going to sustain them with the lifestyle and the longer years that they have. So that's why this independence in finances has become such a key focus. And that's a positive thing because
yeah.
it's good for the national economy, it's good for the taxpayer, and it's good for the individual, where they then have more options and they're not reliant on a safety net. They're in charge of their own destiny a little bit more. But it does mean that they've got to get some strategies around that. And what has proven over the long term in Australia to provide that nest egg has been the family home, has been a place that you live in. Because firstly, it means that you're building an asset that gives you that security. It's got a benefit. It's something that historically, almost without exception, over the long term, has appreciated. It becomes the retirement vehicle that people can downsize from. So it's that proven base, and it's a stable base. It's safe as houses for a reason. But the other important thing is it provides that mortgage, gives them an incentive to pay that down. It's forced savings. And the challenge with those who aren't getting into property or feel priced out or feel that maybe just the lifestyle of travel is maybe more where they're at is that sure they've got high earnings when they're younger and high cash flow. They don't have the dependence, they're not locked into a lot of expenses, school fees or other things. So they can spend it for sure and enjoy the lifestyle, but they're not forced into any savings. And so when the 20 somethings run out, they've had some great times, great experiences under their belt, lots of Instagram posts, but perhaps not any significant savings or a pathway to get there. And that's why what went on in the past with the boomers and the Gen Xs is probably a good track to follow for the younger ones, and why now the Gen Z, who are getting a bit more serious, they lived through the GFC. That was an early experience for them. They saw a little bit of upset there in their early years, seeing their parents go through a bit of anxiety, and they're saying maybe I need to focus in a bit on some financial independence and a pathway to get there.
And let's not forget, sorry, the debt that they do bring in that journey. That's probably another separation. So I know that there'll be probably a few people driving in the car listening to something. You don't forget, we've also got that student debt.
Yeah.
So let's recognise that for what it is, because it's true, absolutely. So it is a little bit harder, to save for that deposit.